You are now listening to the Outsiders Sports Show right here on The Hog, the most comprehensive and hard-hitting sports hour on radio today. And now, coming at you with their unabashed sports magnetism, here are your hosts, Clint Schweitzer and Noah Groniger.
And welcome everyone to the Outsider Sports Show. Clint Schweitzer and Noah Groniger. So happy to be joining you right here on The Hog on a beautiful college football Saturday.
That's right, I'm jacked up. I can't wait. College football, then the NFL, 48 hours of football. I'm not moving from this spot till it is all said and done.
And why would you need to? That's what we're here for. We've got your back, so tune in. We got some great guests coming up. We are going to be talking about the Kansas City Chiefs and their 6-0 start with former Raider George Atkinson coming up a little later. And we will be previewing the Chiefs and Texans with none other than the voice of the Houston Texans, Marc Vandermeer. And if that's not enough, we're going to be previewing Mizzou and Florida, the 6-0 Missouri Tigers, taking on the Florida Gators with none other than Travis McGriff for the Florida Gators Radio Network. Going to have him on, and we're going to start with college football and the aforementioned 6-0 Missouri Tigers as they get set to take on the Florida Gators, the 22nd ranked Florida Gators, here at the top of the hour on the SEC Network. Noah, Missouri goes into Georgia, a place that is very daunting where they had won 15 consecutive conference games. They get a big win, one of the biggest of the Gary Pinkel era, but it comes at a price. Starting quarterback James Franklin is hurt. Shoulder separation out 3 to 5 weeks. How does this affect the Missouri Tigers with Matty Mock now coming to take over the reins?
Well, it's definitely going to be interesting. Like you said, James Franklin out. 2 backup quarterbacks in this game with Murphy for the Florida Gators and Matty Mock for the Missouri Tigers. We haven't seen much of Matty. We just got to believe, hope he can do it. And Florida's not too strong this year, so it should be interesting.
Well, I'm going to, when you talk about Florida, they have 2 losses. They have lost to LSU and to Miami, two top 10 teams. I'll tell you what, the Florida Gators, they play some salty defense. They've got some players in that secondary that are going to absolutely try to play bump and run coverage and lock down this good Missouri receiving core. And it's going to be really up to Matty Mock and how he leads this offense, making no mistakes, because this Florida team thrives off making turnovers, very similar to our Kansas City Chiefs, because they don't have very good offense. Murphy has given them a little bit of a dimension as a dual threat quarterback, but really, they have a running back hurt. The starting running back is not going to be playing today. Florida is going to struggle offensively. Missouri has to be able to put up some points. I think 20, 21 points is going to be enough for Missouri if they can get there. We haven't seen a lot of Matty Mock. He is the son of a coach. His brother was the all-time leader in passing yards at the high school level in the history of high school football until Matty Mock himself broke his own brother's record. Matty Mock threw for almost 19,000 yards in high school. He's got the pedigree. We're just going to have to see if he's going to be able to come in here and be as effective as James Franklin was, because Franklin had been so good up until this point. It's really hard to see Missouri's momentum get thwarted at this point.
Yeah, it really is. Franklin was super consistent all season long. Matty Mock has all the weapons around him in the running game, in the wide receivers. He has got to just get them the ball consistently, and the defensive line for Missouri, I believe they can get after anyone in the SEC. Definitely Florida with Ely, with Sam, with Golden. I think they can put pressure on him and hold him down to a few points, so Matty Mock will be in this game.
You talked about the pass rush for Missouri, which has been amazing this year. And you saw Michael Sam had 3 sacks against Georgia. He was just all over the place. And Marcus Golden as well. And I think that Florida is going to be a team it's an interesting situation for them, because Will Muschamp in his 3rd year, they had a very good season last year. Offense still struggled. But we're going to talk to Travis McGriff coming up, on our next segment. Going to be talking about this Florida team. What are their perceptions of Missouri and coming in to play in Columbia, Missouri? Because this is a new situation for them. A lot of these SEC teams, that didn't play here last year, are having to come to Columbia and play in a different environment maybe than they're used to. So big matchup for the Missouri Tigers coming here at the top of the hour on the SEC Network. It's a big day for college football, not only in the SEC, Noah, but Florida State and Clemson, certainly the game of the week in the country as we head into this week. Clemson will be hosting the Florida State Seminoles. These are 2 teams I really think that the winner of this could find themselves in the national championship game.
Yeah, Clemson with Taj Boyd, Florida State with James Winston. It is going to be a heck of a matchup. I love Sammy Watkins, possibly coming to the Kansas City Chiefs after this year.
Hey,
super explosive, great wide receiver. I've watched him since his beginning time at Clemson.
So. He was the number 1 recruit, the number 1 receiver recruit in the nation. He goes to the Clemson Tigers. This is his junior season. He's really shining. And Taj Boyd, certainly in the conversation for Heisman, as is Winston. Love how both of these teams are playing. I cannot pick a winner. We saw Florida State in their biggest test so far against the Maryland Terrapins. They beat them 63-0. Although Clemson has a big win of their own. They defeated the Georgia Bulldogs in the week 1 in Clemson. So I think the resumes are similar. The teams are similar. I can't pick a winner. I'll tell you what, I love what Jimbo Fisher's doing. If I have to, I guess I'll take Florida State.
If I have to, I'm going to take Clemson with Taj Boyd. All that experience that he has over James Winston, playing in the big games, playing for Clemson, and playing with Sammy Watkins, just a fabulous wide receiver.
And I know we don't talk much Big 12 football around here, Noah. But,
nor should we, but we're going to do a little bit here now.
This is SEC country now, and we like to cover those teams. But I'll tell you what, there was a shocker from the Big 12 last week that has to be brought up, and that's Texas laying the hammer down onto the Oklahoma Sooners. I'm shocked. We yelled it. We yelled Boomer Sooner on this very show a week ago. Boy, were we wrong.
That we were. Case McCoy came out there, played a very nice game. Mac Brown looks like he could keep his job. I mean, it's just one game.
But 3-0 in the conference now.
It's a big piece to the puzzle for Mac. I mean, if he goes and loses the rest, then obviously this one game will not save his job. But it's a big piece to the puzzle. And if he can finish it out strong, then the pundits and experts at ESPN may be wrong. We may be wrong. Mac Brown may keep his job.
And where does this leave the Big 12 Conference? Because Oklahoma was thought to, well, it was a foregone conclusion that Oklahoma and Baylor, that winner, was just going to win the Big 12. Well, not so fast. Texas is now 3-0. The Baylor Bears are still rolling along as they defeated Kansas State last week, and they move into the 12th spot in the country, and they're really looking like the team to beat in the Big 12. If Baylor wins this conference, what does that say about the Big 12 in general?
I think it just describes how good Baylor is, actually. Baylor is playing extremely impressive football. Yes, it might say that the Big 12 is down a little bit, and obviously you can see that just watching the games, that the talent comparison between them and the SEC, the Pac-12, just isn't there. But still, Baylor has played really impressive football, blowing people out of the building. So I don't think it says that too much bad on the Big 12, but maybe a little.
Well, yeah, and the Big 12, it's struggling. You got at the bottom of the conference, you've got Kansas, who is just an absolute joke and a nightmare,
atrocious,
an afterthought. Iowa State has played competitive football, but they're not winning. Texas Tech has been kind of a surprise to me, because they're still undefeated.
Yeah, with head coach Cliff Kingsbury, they're really impressing so far this season.
My favorite game from the Big 12 this year has actually been Texas Tech and Kansas, because I'll tell you, you're laughing. But I'll tell you why. Because has there ever been, between two head coaches facing off in a football game, has there ever been a bigger looks disparity in a game than Texas Tech's Cliff Kingsbury and Charlie Weiss from Kansas? I mean, we've got this young, good-looking...
Some people say he looks like Ryan Gosling. Kingsbury does.
Cliff Kingsbury, this good, and then you've got Charlie Weiss, who looks like some sort of sloth, just some guy that flopped in from off the boat from some horror movie and
Jabba the Hutt or something.
Just coaching a football game. Like, has there ever been a bigger disparity? I've never seen.
I don't think there has been. We'll have to do some research and come back at you next week.
Mark Mangino and some guys he coached against, that could have also. But Cliff Kingsbury, very impressed with him. Very impressed with what they're doing. Of course, we're keeping it in the SEC, and we're going to be talking to Travis McGriff from the Florida Gators Football Network coming up here as we go to break here. Thanks so much for joining us right here on The Hog. Be sure to come back and join us after our first break. And welcome back to the Outsider Sports Show right here on The Hog. Joined currently by former Florida Gator and current post-game analyst for the Florida Gator Radio Network, Travis McGriff. Travis, welcome to the show, man. You've got more connections to Kansas City than you think. We got the 6-0 Chiefs, and you are yourself a former Bronco, man. How's it going?
Well, I appreciate you guys having me, and you're right. I do have some memories of playing there in Arrowhead, and certainly one of the best venues in all of the NFL. And I'm not quite sure what our Bronco record was there, but it seems like we lost more than we won. So that's a good place, man. The times I did play out there, I remember it was freezing cold, and for a Florida boy, I didn't enjoy that part of it.
Yes, now speaking currently about the Missouri-Florida matchup, the 22nd ranked Gators coming on to take on the 14th ranked Tigers here in Columbia, Missouri. The first trip to Columbia for you Florida folks, and I tell you what, kind of an odd circumstance coming to this game. Missouri gets the big win over the Georgia Bulldogs last week in Athens, but in the process they lose a quarterback. James Franklin out for the year. Of course, Florida also dealing with the same thing. What from the Florida standpoint, how do you feel coming into this game, going against an unknown in Matty Mock at quarterback for the Missouri Tigers?
Well, I think because of some of the factors you mentioned, it's a really intriguing matchup, not just from a Florida perspective or even a Missouri perspective, but I think anybody that's paying close attention to how this SEC East race is taking shape, Missouri holds the cards right now. They can kind of determine their own destiny as Florida can. So, lot to play for. You know, you mentioned James Franklin going down in the win over Georgia, which is really unfortunate for Missouri. Matty Mock is before the Georgia game, I didn't know much at all about him. I thought when he came in, he did do a nice job. He obviously was a very heralded guy coming out of high school. But this will be a big-time game for him, and he'll be facing one of the best defenses in the country in the Florida Gators. And, Florida's dealing with their own issues. You lose Matt Jones, the starting tailback. We've had issues with the offensive line being deemed up. We lost Dominic Easley, one of the best defensive tackles in the SEC a couple weeks ago. And so we're banged up and kind of, nursing our wounds as we come in. But coming off the loss to LSU, the Florida offense really underperformed. And I think, Missouri has proven that they can score points. They're an up-tempo type of offense. And even though you're breaking in a freshman quarterback, I don't really expect them to change. I expect them to play aggressively. And so the Florida defense will have to contend with that. But also, the Florida offense is going to have to play better than they have in the past weeks and score some points. And in my opinion, be more aggressive than they have been.
What does the Florida coaching staff and defense expect out of Matty Mock in this Missouri offense? Do they expect a quick passing game, get him comfortable, see if he can handle that, and then go deeper downfield, or do they expect him to let it fly from the very first whistle?
When you listen to Will Muschamp talk, I think what they expect is just more of the same. Whatever Missouri has done with James Franklin, I think that's what they're expecting to see with Matty Mock. And it's always tough when you're breaking in a new quarterback. From a defensive perspective, when you're scouting, there's not much of Matty on tape, but they're not going to go back and watch his high school tape. So all they can break down really is the scheme. What does Missouri do? How do they like to attack? Their general concepts. What are the history of these coordinators and the things they like to do in different down and distance type situations? And you really prepare for that and then adjust on the fly. If you flip that coin, if I'm Missouri, do you do some things early to get Mock comfortable, whether that's short throws, whatever that may be as a quarterback, it always helps if they can get into a rhythm early. Certainly playing at home is going to help his confidence. But I've also seen some comments by Gary Pinkel the last couple of days, and I don't think they're going to baby him very much. I mean, they want him to play within himself and don't try to do too much and rely on the people around him. But be confident, play hard, and go out there, and they're going to call an aggressive game. And, as I said, they're a spread it out, up-tempo, let's go fast and score points type of offense. And just because you're breaking in a new quarterback, you don't completely go away from that. They're not built to do that. It's their scheme. So the Gators certainly have a big challenge.
Travis, of course, this is Missouri's only second year here in the SEC. Last year was sort of a disastrous beginning to that relationship. But the Tigers did go to the Swamp last year, played well, nearly knocked off the Florida Gators in the Swamp. Does the fact that took place have the attention of this team and this coaching staff more so than, say, had Missouri come in and just got completely blown out last year?
I don't know that last year's game really plays into it. I really don't. This is a new year. Missouri is playing really well, and you take that as it is. And right now, this Gator team has enough issues of their own, from injuries to maybe underperforming in some different parts of our teams, that they better take anybody seriously. And when you got to make a long road trip like we're going to out in Missouri, I mean, that's the longest road trip the University of Florida's really ever made when you're playing an SEC team. And so it's an early game, long trip. There's a lot to deal with. And I think the Gator, the maturity level, I should say, is really going to be tested. How do these guys handle it? How do you bounce back after an emotional loss against LSU? they need a big performance, and I think they all know that, and they're obviously working their butts off this week to put themselves in a position to play their best game.
How much does Florida trust their offensive line, especially against this Missouri defensive front with Ely, Sam, Golden? Are they going to keep the tight ends and backs in, or do they trust that front five to get their job done?
That's a good question. At the beginning of the season, most of the so-called experts around here, even the Florida coaching staff, would have told you that the offensive line was going to be a strength of the Gator offense, and we were going to, run the ball and throw off of that, but we wanted to be a downhill power type of running team. And there have been certain linemen that we've lost for the year. There have been others that's dinged up. Guys are shuffling in and out at different positions, and so there's a lot of, a little bit of uncertainty with this group. And I think that when you talk about different aspects of the team, maybe that is one that's underperformed a little bit. And so I don't think we're confident that, hey, let's just line it up and let's ram it down somebody's throat, because we really haven't shown the ability to do that. I mentioned earlier that you lose Mac Jones, who was your number one tailback. He missed a good part of preseason with an illness. And so you're left with Mac Brown and a freshman, Kelvin Taylor. So you don't have the big stud tailbacks. Your offensive line has been, not as productive as you'd hoped the last couple weeks. And then you mentioned the tight end position. We don't really have one. That's a guy that can play attached, help you in the run game, and then also run routes. Now, when we go goal line personnel, then we do have a couple guys that we bring in, and they're not really a threat to pass game. So I think what we have to be is balanced, trying to get to your point, to answer your question. I think we're certainly going to start with the run. That's who we are. That's what Will likes to do. We'll spread it out some. We'll give you some base personnel. We'll give you some goal line personnel. To me, the key for the Gators is they have to be aggressive. Too often we lean on our defense. In my opinion, we get overly conservative, and then it puts us in a tough spot later in the game. So I think we got to play smart. I'm not saying we take unnecessary risks, but be balanced and attack.
I want to ask you briefly here about quarterback Tyler Murphy. Here's a guy filling in for Jeff Driscoll. A lot of people believe that he adds a new dynamic to this offense, that he gives just a little bit more as far as dynamic with that offense. I mean, is that something that you would agree with, and how would you say the early returns are here on Tyler Murphy as he's played now for a few games? 5 touchdowns, 1 interception, not playing bad out there.
No, he's really done well, and during the preseason, Tyler Murphy's been here for 3 or 4 years and has not had much playing time at all, and there hadn't been that much buzz around him, whatsoever. There was talk in the preseason that, you have Jeff Driscoll and absolutely nothing behind him. So when Jeff went down against Tennessee and Tyler came in and really did a nice job, I think it kind of took everybody, including me, by surprise. I didn't know he was capable of some of the things he's been doing. And what's really impressed me, guys, is just his overall poise, confidence, maturity with how he's handled this situation. Has shown a knack of making plays. He's accurate with his throws. He knows when to tuck it and run and get down. He knows when to scramble and throw it away. Has a very nice pocket sense, can slide around and do some nice things. Now, I'm not saying he's an All-American at this point, but what he has done is manage the offense, make plays when they've asked him to, and really done a nice job. Had a little bit of a tough week last week against LSU. The protection was not great. He was scrambling around a bunch, but he did miss some throws here and there, and so you never want to see that. But for the most part, I think everybody feels good about him, and really he's been a bright part of this Gator offense the last couple of weeks.
Well, Travis, I'll tell you what, a lot of people in Columbia really excited to get their eyes on this Florida team. This SEC thing's very exciting for Missouri and Missouri fans, getting to see these type of teams play. A big-time program like Florida coming in. It's going to be very exciting in Columbia. We look forward to that. And thank you so much for joining us today, Travis. It's going to be very interesting. Good luck to the Florida Gators, and good luck this weekend, man. Hope you have a great win, and we'll definitely catch up soon.
Well, sounds good, guys. I appreciate you having me, and enjoy the game.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Travis. And big thanks to Travis McGriff for joining us. Going to be interesting to see what happens in this game, because this is a strength versus strength. Missouri's offense against Florida's defense, but Missouri with that backup quarterback You just got to hope that Matty Mock has, he's had a week to work with this first string. Definitely offensive coordinator Josh Henson's been working with him. Quarterbacks coach Andy Hill. Gary Pinkel's going to have this guy ready, I think.
I think he will too, but I still see this as a low-scoring game, and I think Missouri's defense, with that pressure, is going to surprise and win a low-scoring game against Florida.
So yeah, and by low scoring, I think this game, I've got Missouri winning this game 20-17. I think that's about the cutoff. I don't think you can expect to score more points than that against the Florida defense unless you get a bunch of turnovers on defense yourself.
I could see them causing turnovers against Murphy, some strip sacks, stuff like that.
Yeah, and they've been good at that, and I really think though that this is big for Missouri because this is a team 6-0, 14th ranked in the nation. Still very much alive in the SEC East to win it. They may be in the driver's seat if they go ahead and beat Florida with the fact that James Franklin may be able to come back in a few weeks. But if Matty Mock is a solid option for this team and can get them through this game against Florida, maybe even South Carolina, and then you get James Franklin back, can you start talking about Missouri as a team that can win this division and get to the SEC title game and play with the Alabama Crimson Tide? I mean, is that where we're at right now?
I think you are at that point. I mean, you need to kind of slow down a little bit.
Yep.
We got to see how Matty Mock does. But if you're right and Matty Mock can hold down the fort till James Franklin gets back, escape with some wins against Florida, South Carolina, like you mentioned, then when James Franklin gets back, yes, we can start having that conversation about a national championship and winning the SEC.
Well, that's coming up here at the top of the hour at 11 o'clock, guys. We want to move on to right now to the National Football League, to the Kansas City Chiefs, to a town that is abuzz, to a town that is painted red right now. Noah, the Chiefs are 6-0. They are doing it without much offense. What do you make of this team right now after 6 weeks?
They are impressive. Yes, people want to mention the easy schedule. Denver's pretty much had an easy schedule. And if you look around the league, there's just not that many strong teams. You've got the Saints, the Seahawks, the Patriots, the Broncos, and the Chiefs, and there's not really much outside of that. The 49ers are struggling here and there. The Colts are struggling here and there. The Ravens are down. I mean, there's just not that many strong teams, so everyone's really going to have an easy schedule.
Yeah, and the Chiefs bring in the Houston Texans, and of course, we're going to be talking about that next segment with Marc Vandermeer, the voice of the Houston Texans, so certainly stick around for that. But before we get into all that, before we get into that game specifically, Noah, this team, as good as it's been, on defense, 10 sacks against the Oakland Raiders. Arrowhead was absolutely just going bonkers. The offense only amassed 21 yards in the fourth quarter. They were not able to salt the game away themselves. Is this a problem right now?
Yes, it is a huge problem. I do not like this offense at all. Eric Fisher is awful so far, but we're not saying he's never going to be good. Dontari Poe didn't have a great rookie year, and he's lighting it up right now. So we have the same hopes for Eric Fisher. Alex Smith, we've made it very clear, at least I have, that I do not like him as the quarterback. I don't think we can go deep into the playoffs, win a Super Bowl with him. People want to say, well, Alex Smith, if only he had a great offensive line and a talented tight end and another good wide receiver. Well, who wouldn't be a good quarterback with all that, and Jamal Charles and Dwayne Bowe? I mean, if that's what it takes, then anybody could be our quarterback.
Alex Smith has been under 50% completions 3 straight games. That's not good enough.
45% last Sunday against Oakland. No.
He's not turning the ball over. He did have, I believe, 3 interceptions in 2 weeks, dating back a couple of weeks from the Giants game to the Titans game. None against the Raiders. They kept a hold of the ball. They knew Oakland was going to make mistakes. Terrell Pryor was just rattled, and the defense did a great job sealing that victory. The Chiefs are 6-0. There's another team that's 6-0, Noah, the Denver Broncos. That's the benchmark.
That it is. They get Von Miller back. Champ Bailey was back last week against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Looked a little rusty. Justin Blackmon had a very big game. Justin Blackmon looks to be coming into his own and maybe a top 5-10 receiver for the rest of the season. And with Von Miller coming back, that's going to put a lot of pressure on Eric Fisher, keeping our backs in to help protect. I just don't see how we can keep up with them offensively.
Well, guys, be sure to stay tuned. After the break, we're going to have former Raider George Atkinson coming on to talk about that Chiefs-Raiders game from last week. Also, Marc Vandermeer, the voice of the Houston Texans, coming on after the break. Be sure to stay tuned. And this is Clint Schweitzer and Noah Groniger right here on The Hog, the Outsider Sports Show, joined once again by former Raider George Atkinson. George, we talked to you last week coming into this game as Oakland came into this game with definitely a chance to win it. Kansas City prevails 24-7, a game that was much closer than the score would indicate. Just talk about the Raiders, how you could gauge their performance from this game, and what did you make of this Kansas City Chiefs team?
Well, I thought they played well the first half. The first half, they put a lot of pressure on Alex Smith. But I think the thing about this team, it's a young team, and they got to learn how to make adjustments at half. Where the Chiefs made their adjustments, the Raiders didn't. I think they came back with pretty much the same game plan that they had going into the first half, and that just doesn't work in the NFL. You got to be able to adjust your game plan. You got to make adjustments, and the things that may work in the first quarter so may not work for you in second quarter, second half, because like Kansas City did, they made adjustments.
What do you think about this Kansas City Chiefs defense? It looks like one of the best in the NFL, and do you think they're strong enough to carry the offense in Alex Smith, who seems to be struggling at the moment?
Well, the defense plays well. I mean, I look at it from the back end all the time. I like to look at the linebackers and the secondary. If they do their job, it gives the defensive line an opportunity. And I think the secondary is playing well. You got some pretty good cover guys on the outside, and every defense needs that. Your linebackers are active, and they fill holes, which makes it easy for the defensive line. I mean, it gives them a chance now to do some things to help out with their linebackers, which gives your linebackers a chance to blitz and fill holes and flow with the flow of plays. The one thing you couldn't tell much about the Kansas City defense is how good are they against the run. As we well know, the Raiders right now have no running game. I mean, when you look at, they're pretty much one-dimensional, which gave the Kansas City defense a chance, especially second half, a chance to tee off. And so, the passing game, definitely they're stout. The running game, I'm not that sure about because, especially against this team that they just played, the Raiders, the Raiders just did not have a good running game, which didn't give me a good indication of how good the Kansas City Chiefs are against the run. In order to win the division, or in order for Kansas City to be competitive and get in the playoffs, they got to be able to stop the run. And I haven't seen evidence that they're good enough to stop the run yet.
Oh, what do you think about the Raiders' offensive line? They give up 10 sacks on Sunday. Have they been struggling so far this season, and what do they think about that game?
You give up 10 sacks in one game. I mean, that speaks volumes. You know what I'm saying? Well, the Raiders' offensive line is makeshift right now. They haven't played with the same guys 2 weeks in succession. It's been somebody new every week in that offensive line. I think the only constant guy that's played constantly is Khalif Barnes. Everybody else has been in and out. You had Waddy in there, who's a rookie, 63, the kid who was in there. He was overwhelmed, I think, but he got a good lesson. And the Raiders' offensive line right now probably is the weakest in the league.
What did you see out of Terrell Pryor on last Sunday? Do you think because it's his first year starting, you're going to see those ebbs and flows, the highs and lows, and but what do you want to see from him throughout the season?
Consistency. Want to see him play consistently, want to see him make plays consistently. Not so much just taking off running, but, making plays, giving his outside guys, the receivers, a chance to make some plays. Right now, like I said, the running game is weak, so you don't have that premier back there who can take pressure off of him. We thought McFadden may be that guy, but from year to year, you never know how many games he's going to give you. And so far this year, he hasn't given us a lot. So, it'll be interesting throughout the season to see how Terrell Pryor adjusts to what's given to him. The whole thing with him is recognition, and you want to be able to see him be consistent in what he's doing.
George, the final two undefeated teams in the National Football League both come from the AFC West, Kansas City and Denver, two polar opposite teams. Of course, Denver winning with wonderful offense, Peyton Manning, Chiefs winning with defense, pass rush. Who do you see coming out of this? And, of course, the teams will have to play twice still down the stretch here. Who do you think comes out of this, and who do you think is the better team right now?
Right now it's hard to tell. They're both undefeated for one thing. Like you said, the first matchup will give us a good indication as to who is the better team in the AFC West, whether it's Denver or Kansas City. Kansas City, like I said, I think that their back end is good on defense. I think the linebackers are good, which gives that defensive line an opportunity to do some things. Against Denver, you're gonna have to stop the run game, and you're gonna have to make Peyton Manning do what he does best, basically throw the football and hope that your secondary to make some plays for you. But as of now, to pick between the two of them, they're both undefeated. It's hard to say right now. I mean, when you look at it, the edge would have to go to Denver, I would think, because of the quarterback position. Peyton Manning, let's face it, he's probably one of the best to ever do it, and I'm pretty sure that when he plays Kansas City, he's going to be on his best game.
What do you think about Terrell Pryor coming out and saying, Raiders, we're still going to make the playoffs?
That's a bold statement. That's a bold statement. It's nice to have that kind of confidence coming from the quarterback, but reality, I mean, unless the offensive line improves, 10 sacks, guys. 10 sacks. I mean, come on, that's some kind of a record, right? I mean,
yes.
You can't give up that many sacks in one game to say you're gonna make your playoffs. I mean, there's definitely a weakness in the offensive line, and that has to be answered before this. You can look at the Raiders and say they can give a competition in this division. I mean, that's a lot of sacks. That's unheard of.
Absolutely. It's going to be interesting to see how things play out. George, I'll tell you what, we got a rematch coming up here in Oakland, down the road here as the season goes on. Now, Noah and I, if we come down to the black hole, and we have our little Chiefs logos on our shirts, are you going to personally escort us into the stadium?
I'll take care of you.
That means the world. I'm in. We're in. We will do that, George. We will look you up as long as we have our bodyguard.
When you get here, guys. So and you can wear your red and white. Don't worry. I'll take care of you.
Hey, that's all we need. I am good with that. George, you are the man. Thanks so much for joining us again. We'll definitely catch up as the rematch comes up. You have been such a wonderful guest to us. Literally our favorite guest to have on. Thank you so much, man.
Hey, man, it's my pleasure. Anytime, just give me a call.
We will, George. We appreciate it.
You take care, George.
You got it.
And a huge thanks to George Atkinson for joining us talking Chiefs and Raiders. And let's quickly move on to previewing the Chiefs-Texans game on Sunday at Arrowhead Stadium. And I think we've got Marc Vandermeer on the line. And we are being joined by the voice of the Houston Texans, Marc Vandermeer. Marc, welcome to the show. How are things going down there in Houston aside from quarterback situations and things like that?
Aside from a 4-game meltdown, just perfectly good. Now, this is a difficult situation, and the team is hoping they can snap out of it. I hope they snap out of it, but right now they're in it, and only they can dig themselves out of it. And they'll have to do it by protecting the ball and getting some positive things going on defense. They've been pretty good, but they got to force turnovers somehow.
What quarterback do you think we're going to see on Sunday? I'm hearing rumblings of Case Keenum.
Well, those are rumblings. They're splitting reps as we speak, and I think that there's a case, pardon the pun, to be made for both. In that, with Yates, you have a guy who has started some games in this league. He had 7 starts in that playoff run deep in 2011, and actually won a playoff game and all of that. So if you go to a place like Arrowhead Stadium, you want somebody who's at least been in the NFL fire before. With Keenum, you have a player who has a lot of emotion. I think the guys like him an awful lot. They do respond to him, it seems. But again, you're dealing with, he's not only in his second year, but he's really in his first year in the NFL. This would be his first ever NFL snap in a regular season situation, and what a place to do it if it comes to that. I was talking to Matt Schaub. He said when he was a backup in Atlanta, he played at Arrowhead, and he went into the game because the Chiefs were blowing out the Falcons, and Vic was out of the game in the third quarter. He said he could not believe how loud it was, even with the home team leading by that much. So that's what kind of adversity, that's what kind of situation Keenum would be under, and Yates too, but it would be tough for a young guy like Keenum to deal with. So I think you could make a case for both guys, but it'll be interesting to see how Gary Kubiak handles it. I'll say this. He has Keenum on the roster for a reason. He loves Keenum. He has him on the 53-man roster for a reason. It came down to the wire for the backup quarterback job between Keenum and Yates. So, maybe somehow, some way, Keenum takes the snaps on Sunday. We'll see.
Is there a case to be made for Case Keenum? Sorry, the pun as well. But with the unknown quarterback success of Brian Hoyer and Thad Lewis this season?
I don't think that comes into play at all. Gary Kubiak's not going to look at that. He's going to look at his own guys, what he thinks Case Keenum is capable of. I can tell you this. The interesting thing about Case is, he put up all those numbers more than anybody else in NCAA history at Houston in that spread-type offense and, the read option and all of that. And he was criticized because they thought he was a system quarterback and he didn't throw the ball well at the combine. Well, he comes into Texans camp, he has a tryout, does very well, and in 1 year he really transformed himself into a viable, at least backup quarterback at this stage, and we'll see if he can do it if he gets the chance. I think that his rate of improvement is so high from where he was when he came out of school that if it continues to climb at that pace, he's bound to be pretty good, but you cannot count on that, especially since you've really never seen him play in an actual regular season game.
Mark, we saw a situation last week which was eerily similar to one that we saw in Kansas City last year where Matt Schaub got injured last week. Fans were cheering as that injury took place. Of course, we saw last year where the same instance happened at Arrowhead Stadium where Matt Castle, also there were cheers as Brady Quinn came out to take his place. What is the gauge of this fan base as far as that incident goes, and just how much are they still behind this Texans team going forward?
Well, they're behind the team. Matt Schaub has, seen his sea of critics grow this season. I mean, there are a lot of people in the offseason who blamed what happened late last year when the team lost 3 out of their last 4, and they were losing going into the postseason. They lost 2 in a row, and then obviously they got slammed in New England in the divisional round, and people blamed a lot of that on Schaub. And if the quarterback doesn't get it done, he doesn't get it done, and he's got to take his share of the responsibility, and he did. And he comes out firing in the opener, and they beat San Diego after being down 21. And then the pick sixes start the next week. They win that game. And look, people cheered when he got hurt. Not everybody, but that vocal minority should be criticized for what they did. And I think the vast majority of fans are not like that. But a lot of people, blame the team's misfortunes on the starting quarterback. And I think, rightfully so in many ways, if you're throwing pick sixes, in consecutive games, you know that there's an issue there. And Matt Schaub is just really not only cooled off, I mean, he's had a personal, I think, meltdown on the football field, and it looked like he was coming out of it last week. He was playing a turnover-free game. They were not really firing on all cylinders offensively, but they were starting to look a little bit better, and then he gets knocked out of the game, and you saw what happened. It's tough between the fan base and Matt Schaub right now. There's no question about that. In many ways, the cheering kind of made him into a sympathetic figure, and, fans going over to his house and the stories getting out. He doesn't want that, though. He doesn't want any part of that. He's a tough competitor. He's a tough guy. He's doing everything he can to get back out there fast. He's getting in there at 4:30 in the morning to work out with the head athletic trainer and just try to get himself back out on the field. But this team had high expectations. They're failing to meet those as of the moment, and they're hearing it from the fans, and it's understandable. It's professional sports. This is what happens.
Well, I wanted to get your, kind of idea on what this Chiefs team is that the Texans are coming to face. Of course, 10 sacks a week ago against the Oakland Raiders, set a volume record for largest crowd volume in a stadium at 137.7 decibels. You mentioned the pick sixes, 5 of them in a row. Is this the week that comes to an end, or is this going to be another instance where this Chiefs defense is able to feast on a team that is turnover prone?
Well, the biggest thing with the Texans is, who are they? What kind of team is this going to be? Who do they want themselves to be? I really think it's all about them. And I know that sounds very sports cliche, but they played the Rams last week, and the Rams are not as bad as people think or thought coming into Reliant Stadium last week. I thought the Rams were actually a fairly dangerous team for this bunch because Bradford protected the ball reasonably well, and I know they hadn't run the ball well, but I knew they had a front seven that could pose some problems, and they kept the Texans out of the end zone, and the Texans turned it over, and that was history, and that was the rest. The Rams protected the football. I look at Kansas City as a team that protects the football extremely well. You have a home crowd, like you mentioned. I mean, they're the exact opposite of the Texans. They're plus 12. The Texans are minus 12. I mean, you need not look any further than turnovers to see why the Texans are doing badly right now, plus penalties, and that points to mental errors and really kind of forcing the issue and everything in certain cases, offensively and defensively. I think it's a very tough team they're playing, but if anybody's going to get their attention, it's this squad this week in this way. This building, an undefeated team, somebody that doesn't turn the ball over. I mean, all those things I think are what this team needs to really put everything into this game to avoid being embarrassed again. And I hate to use that word, but that's what it's been the last couple of weeks. I mean, when you allow 30 plus 2 weeks in a row and over 30 or more, 3 out of 4 games in this slide, it's unacceptable for a team as good as they are. And they don't have full-scale injuries yet, although this week they got hit with Daniel Manning and Matt Schaub. But it hasn't been injuries you can blame it on. They have to blame it on themselves, their own play, coaches, players included.
Mark, it's going to be interesting, and I really hope you have a great call this Sunday at Arrowhead Stadium. Great place to come, great place to visit. Hope you guys have a great game. Good luck to the Houston Texans, and we'll be listening. Have a great call this weekend. Thanks so much for joining us, Mark. We really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, guys. Take care.
You too.
Thanks a lot, Mark, for joining us. And coming up after the break, guys, we're going to continue talking Chiefs football with ESPN.com's Jeffri Chadiha, so stay tuned. And welcome back to the Outsider Sports Show. We are joined right here on the Hog, KKES-FM, by ESPN.com's Jeffri Chadiha. Jeff, how's everything going on the worldwide leader, my man?
It's been good. How you guys been?
Everything's great. Things are off and rolling here in Kansas City, Jeff. 6-0. The Kansas City Chiefs have started. I know in previous weeks you've had a column stating that these Kansas City Chiefs, have a good shot at winning, even despite the fact that how this offense is playing. Do you still feel that way? Do you still feel like the Kansas City with 10 sacks against Oakland on Sunday, that's going to be enough going forward?
Oh, I do. You look at how they're playing. You look at their formula for success right now. Playing good defense. Trying to use Jamal Charles as much as possible. Not turning the ball over. Playing great special teams. I mean, they've used that formula, to get 6 wins. And right now, with the way the NFL is, with the way the AFC is, really, you don't see a lot of competition out there. You see Denver, maybe the Patriots being in there, maybe Cincinnati, but right now they're probably one of the top 5 teams in football because of the way they play.
Well, what about Alex Smith? I mean, he had 45% completion percentage. He's had 3 turnovers. I mean, what's going on with Alex Smith? Can the Chiefs beat the Broncos or the Patriots in the playoffs with a quarterback like that?
Well, I think that the big problem is just the lack of weapons around him right now. When he has, this is in San Francisco, when he has good weapons around him, his numbers are pretty good. When he left San Francisco the last 2 years he was there, he's one of the leading passers in the NFL because he had, Vernon Davis, he had Michael Crabtree, he had Frank Gore. Right now, I think the biggest problem for Alex Smith is that outside of Dwayne Bowe, they don't really have a proven receiver. Donnie Avery's a nice speed guy, but he hasn't been consistent, and they don't really have a third or a fourth player, and their top 2 tight ends are both hurt, haven't played in a long time. So you really look at what he's working with there, and really this whole offense right now is about giving Jamal Charles as many touches as he can get, trying to find a way to get Dwayne Bowe a few catches, and hope Alex Smith doesn't make the big turnover.
You had a column recently on ESPN.com stating that the Chiefs need to go out and make this Tony Gonzalez trade happen. I mean, how much is that simply a pipe dream versus reality? And do you think that that there is any possibility of this, especially if Atlanta continues their losing ways?
I think there's a possibility of it. I mean, I've already heard rumblings that there's been at least one conversation. I don't know who made the phone call, whether it was the Chiefs or the Falcons, but I've heard that from people who know what's happening that has occurred, and that means it's going to happen, but it does mean that, people are shaking the bushes now, and it makes sense for both sides if you look at it. If Atlanta can't turn their season around, and right now it looks like that's pretty unlikely, they're going to look to make a move with him. He's not going to be
I'm not sure if you're aware of Bomani Jones' comments on the Chiefs. He was on Dan Le Batard's Highly Questionable and said that he doesn't believe in the Chiefs 6-0 start. Alex Smith is the mascot for mediocre. He played like hot garbage on Sunday, and he's a weak-armed Chad Pennington.
Well, I mean, I think the last one's probably true. But, at the end of the day, they're 6-0, and only one other team in the NFL can say that. And whether you like how they've gotten there, what they're doing, you have to respect their numbers. I mean, people get so consumed with offensive football and great quarterback play, and everybody wants to have a Peyton Manning or a Tom Brady or a Drew Brees. The fact is, not everybody can have that. And there are a lot of ways to win games in this league. And really, what I like about this team, the Chiefs, right now, is that they've gotten back to playing defense. And there's good defensively as any team out there right now. And I was doing a radio show earlier today and talked about they're not at the same level as the Baltimore Ravens of 2000 are, but they're playing with the same type of attitude. Let's play great defense. Let's not make turnovers. Let's force teams to play our style of football. And again, it's no matter what time of year you're talking about, that kind of football wins games.
Of course, you mentioned the Denver Broncos. The Kansas City Chiefs and Denver are certainly polar opposites of each other. Do you think it's more glaring, people heaping this criticism on the Chiefs in this offense because of the fact that Peyton Manning plays in the same division as Kansas City, and that is sort of the benchmark for what the Chiefs are going to have to be to win this division? Or do you feel that if this defense keeps up its pace, it can slow down Denver enough to at least beat them once and stay in the hunt for the division?
Well, I certainly think Peyton Manning being in the division ramps up those kind of comments. I think him getting a free agent, probably knows that Kansas City probably plays into that as well. But again, you look at historically, when you look at offenses doing what the Broncos are doing right now. You look at the 2007 Patriots. You look at 2001 Rams, 98 Vikings. All those teams got beat at one point. They were supposed to be their own record-breaking teams. We know future highlights, great numbers, but they got beat by really good defenses, and they got slowed down by really good defenses. And I think the Chiefs, right now, you can make the case the Chiefs have the best defense in football. Certainly, statistically, you look at the points per game, the takeaways, the sacks. They lead the league in all those categories. So when you're doing those kind of things, it's a lot easier for that team in making the other team play their style of football than it is for the Broncos to keep scoring 45 points a game.
Jeff, how big was it for the Chiefs fans in Arrowhead Stadium this past Sunday? The Chiefs in 2008 went 1-7 at home. In 2009, it was similar to that. In 2011, it was 3-5. Last year, 1-7 at home. How big was it for Arrowhead Stadium on Sunday to come in there to break the world record, the Guinness Book of World Record for loudest crowd, and to really help the team that much? And does that show you that Arrowhead is in fact back as one of the toughest places to play in the National Football League?
Oh, I totally think that, and I really believe that. From what I just said, I think that this town loves great defense more than it loves great offense. When Dick Vermeil was here, and Trent Green, Priest, all those guys were putting up those big numbers. I think it was exciting for people, but I don't think it was as infectious as it was when Derek Thomas and Neil Smith and all those guys back in the '90s were doing their thing with Marty Schottenheimer. I think this is a blue-collar town. It's a no-nonsense town, and it's a town when you're playing good defense, it allows your crowd to get into the game. And so I think that it all feeds off each other, and you're right. I think, again, the defense being good has a lot to do with the crowd being what it is again, and it's a great thing to see.
Well, we'll see how things progress going forward here for this Chiefs team. Currently 6-0, one of two undefeated teams. ESPN.com's Jeffri Chadiha joining us. And we can't thank you enough for coming here and joining us here on the Hog, KKES-FM today. Jeffri, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll catch up soon, my man.
No problem, guys. Take care.
Thank you. And always great to hear from our friend Jeffri Chadiha from ESPN.com. And Jeffri, he contends that this Chiefs team can keep winning with this offense still playing at a subpar level. Do you agree with that?
I don't really. I mean, our defense would have to play lights out for that to happen, or Alex Smith would have to miraculously improve somehow. Maybe a trade for Tony Gonzalez would help out, or somebody else. I don't know. The Giants are shopping Hakeem Nicks. The Browns are shopping Josh Gordon, two wide receivers that would really help out this offense, and hopefully Eric Fisher can just develop and improve.
Yeah, that's the first overall pick of the draft. Eric Fisher has not played well, and I think at this point, to give your team to give us the best chance to win, I think Andy Reid maybe needs to look more at Donald Stevenson at that position. Fisher is being the first play of the Raiders game. He was just beaten like a drum. I mean, massacred.
Yeah, Eric Fisher is completely struggling. I think we do need to go Donald Stevenson, but you wonder what the organization is thinking and saying that they kind of failed on that draft pick, at least for now, and shelving him for a while and letting him learn. That's kind of unusual for a number 1 draft pick.
Well, we talked to the voice of the Texans, Marc Vandermeer, last segment, and we had not given our prediction for that game yet. So as we look at that, the Texans come in beaten up, just absolutely dreadful coming into this game at 2-4. Quarterback situation is a mess. This is not probably a good situation for them to be coming into to try to get healthy and get better.
Definitely not, especially with TJ Yates or Case Keenum in the crazy environment that now is Arrowhead once again for the first time since maybe the early 2000s and the 90s. So Case Keenum or TJ Yates are going to have problems. They're going to have turnovers. And I think we win this game. Even though Alex Smith and this offense is struggling, the turnovers from the defense are definitely going to help.
Pretty much every week I pick the Chiefs to win 27-17, and I'm going to keep it right at that mark and say 27-17 again.
I think I'm going to go a little higher than that, 28-9.
Well, there it is. There it leads. But I'll tell you what, guys, thank you so much for joining us on the Outsiders Sports Show here on The Hog today. Thanks to our guests. All great. I mean, this show, guys, we do this. We love coming on here, and we love giving our opinion about sports. But for us, it's really about bringing you, the listener, the guests, coming in, getting their opinions, getting their expertise. That's what it's all about for us, Noah.
That it is. And we had a jam-packed show today. We hope you enjoyed each and every interview. We did. We love having these guys on. Thank you so much for listening and your continued support.
We appreciate it. Please hit us up on our Facebook page, The Outsiders Sports Show. Please search that on Facebook and at Outsiders Sports Show on Twitter. Come follow us. We love the interaction. We love talking with all the fans, guys. Hope you guys have a wonderful weekend with your families, around the couch, watching sports, at a game, at a sporting event. Keep it going. Outsiders Sports Show. We thank you so much for joining us here on The Hog. Have a great weekend.